Hi guys and welcome. We are sitting today with Coach Moritz Kossmann. Coach, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Today we thought, obviously everybody knows that Coach Moritz has moved on from Ubuntu, and we waited for him to settle in his new job or portfolio until we actually had a chat. Obviously we at the Fourth Moment rate Coach Moritz quite high with regards to local football in Cape Town, especially youth development. So Coach, today we just here wanting to have a chat.
Yeah.
Find out maybe what caused the move to Cape Town City. Was it just the growth for yourself personally? Just give us a story.
Yeah, I think firstly I'm incredibly grateful for my time at Ubuntu. It was 6 years on the dot. And I think we achieved a lot during those 6 years. A lot of really good moments, a lot of really good times, very memorable times that I look back on fondly. Obviously, I was the head coach of the ABC for 3 seasons, and I think we achieved some really good things in that time, finishing second in our stream last year, but more importantly, moving so many players on to professional clubs and also certainly establishing a brand in terms of the playing style. So I thought after 6 years, it was time for a new challenge in a different league. I'd been in the Vodacom or in the Motsepe for 3 years as head coach, plus a year before that working with the team as well. So I thought it was time for a challenge, a different challenge, and that was really all it was. I am still very grateful to Ubuntu. Like I said, I'm friends with pretty much everybody there, or actually everybody there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Just we don't want to talk too much, obviously, about Ubuntu because we are moving on. But just maybe a couple of highlights, because I mean things like you have achieved quite a bit there. Probably the youngest team in the ABC League.
Yeah.
At one season, you were actually competing for the top spot with that young team. Are there maybe just one or two special moments which you can maybe think of, or achievements, something that you thought, wow, did that actually happen, or this is what you feel glad about that you achieved?
I think 2019 winning the national engine stands out a lot, because 2019 obviously the club got relegated from the NFD to the Motsepe, which was incredibly hard moment for everybody involved. And you know, then going into engine, previous to that, the best ever finish was a quarter final, still playing under partnership with Fishhook. It was Ubuntu's first time playing as Ubuntu in the engine, going on to win that, and then also winning the national engine in Gauteng was a special moment. I think defending it in 2021 after the COVID break was another special moment against a very strong Cape Town City team in the final at that point. Then for me, stepping into Motsepe as head coach, you know, the first season that I did was this mini season of 7 teams, which was a little bit of an odd season, so to say. And then the first season was the real full first season was the 2021-22 season. We didn't really know what to expect. We were a very young team, and I think we were challenging at the top of the stream with Zizwe and Grassy Park right up until the end. We had, you know, some amazing home games, beating Clarewood at the time 5-1 in Ocean View, you know, thoroughly beating Grassy Park also 3-1 there was great. Then between that season and the next, you know, there was a lot of players that moved on, primarily to play DDC at various PSL clubs. So it was out of the main 18 players or so, it was 13 players that moved between those seasons. And then you don't know what to expect in the next season, but now we were able to sort of take even another step forward, compete for the stream right up until the last day. Again, playing some really good football, again with some memorable games at home. You know, the beating Clarewood there at home was again a good one. I think beating Hanover Park twice home and away, beating FN Rangers away from home. So there was some really nice moments where the young boys stood up tremendously to pressure, and I was very proud to be that team's coach. And I enjoyed it up until the last minute, and I think it's like a season where everyone that was involved in that season, staff or players, will look back at it as something, as a team that they enjoyed being a part of.
Definitely.
So those were,
I think they're only history basis, so to say. So so now we with Cape Town City, obviously there's a new challenge. I'm sure, like any new job, there's challenges, things to get used to, and so on. What's exciting? What's different? How are you finding it?
Yeah, it's been a really good start. I would say we've had an extended pre-season with almost 2.5 months now since the beginning of July.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been without challenges, and I particularly refer to external factors that we can't control. Engine being restarted and rained out in Langa. Then we had to take an extended break for safety reasons with the taxi strike. So things like that have been a little bit challenging. Nevertheless, I'm lucky to work with a really good team there, good team of staff, and also a very nice, disciplined, well-mannered bunch of young players.
Okay.
And I think everyone has worked hard to make me feel welcome, to help me on board, to help me get used to the different setup, and also to ride those challenges when they do come along. I mean, it's normal that we have to be flexible enough to deal with things like that, and I think we have. And we've trained hard, we've worked hard. I think we've played a total of 8 friendlies, all against Motsepe teams at different stages. So obviously now also playing with very young team against senior teams is a good challenge. And I think
something that you're not used to, though.
Yeah, a lot of teams that I know well historically. We've played FN Rangers, we played Antalya Sport, previously Clarewood twice. We played Santos, Hout Bay a couple of times. So we've had a good run of tough competitive friendlies, and I think we are well prepared for the start of the DDC season this weekend.
And just talking about that, so what is the role exactly? So you're head coach of the DDC team?
Yeah. So my role is a dual role. I'm the DDC head coach, and I'm the technical head of youth. So working very closely with Grant Veach in terms of running the youth, me more on the football side and him more on the leadership point.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, that's been good too, getting to know the players in the 3 different teams that we have, the SAB, the DDC, and the under-16 team. Yeah. Getting to know the various players in there, getting to work with the coaches. It's been good. I think by now I've gotten to a stage where I know everyone by name, even if they're not in my team. So that's important, and also building an understanding of the individuals that are in our care, because that is the most important when you're working at a development and an academy level, is that you understand the players on the field, off the field. You understand growth areas that they might have in their game, because young players, no matter how well they're doing, all have growth areas in their game.
Most definitely.
Getting to understand those, and getting to understand also how we can work with various individuals within our team structure to improve those various little areas, to hopefully get them as close as possible to one day having a chance to play in our first team, because that is the goal. We want to develop academy players that are good enough to add value into our first team in the long run.
Just you mentioned earlier on the 3rd division team.
Yeah.
What sort of the role there? Obviously, that's also on your oversight to obviously look for the talent. They also see what you can do. Then the natural progression.
Yeah. Coach Byron Cottle will take charge of the SAB.
Okay, just on that. So Byron was normally on the other side of the line, so to say. Yeah. When you were the Ubuntu, how's that? You guys always had a good relationship, and now you're working together?
Yeah, I mean, I treasure that, because we've talked about several clashes over the years, and it was always close games, always one goal in it either way. So we've reminisced a little bit in pre-season about that already. And obviously now we get to work together. I think Byron is a young, dynamic coach with a hell of a lot of ability and potential as well. Like, we're all fairly young people working in the academy, and then we're looking to grow together. And he will take charge of the SAB, which is an exciting step for him. I think it's an ideal platform also for young 16, 17, 18-year-old players to grow into.
So just coming back to the question, so you obviously have responsibility on that oversight also.
From the technical point of view, yes. Yeah. But obviously the team has a head coach as well.
Yeah. Then one thing you do have now, which obviously was lacking at Ubuntu, the ease of pro setup to prepare the boys for. Not that you didn't at Ubuntu. Obviously they went to other clubs, but now that must be a bit different. How you basically look at things. Obviously, you need to know also what's happening on the PSL side.
Yeah, I think that has been a really nice start to my work at City as well, where I've worked very closely with Paul Lamb, the video analyst of the first team, with Diogo Paral, the assistant coach. I've been in basically daily communication with both of those guys, learning about let's call it the transition players, the players that are sort of between the first team and the DDC, trying to pay a lot of attention to what we can do as coaches to help those players ultimately succeed. Getting an idea, I do watch every single game of the first team to get an idea of what are the things that they need players to be able to do, because I feel that they have a very, progressive style of play. They look to build. They're a ball playing team, and so that means we have to develop players that can step into that and be comfortable at that, because that's ultimately going to give those individuals the best shot at the top.
So my next question from like, I think a more coaching point of view is, so every coach has his sort of methodology and philosophy which they work with. You have now from an environment where I think you were basically in control of that before. Now you sort of have to get into a system. How does that make you change your approach, or is it easy just to fall in? Is it some sort of something that you've got to accommodate? How do you go navigating that?
I think firstly, no matter what your principles of play are, you always have to vary your approach slightly, because you're always working with different players. So even in my previous role at Ubuntu, the players in my care change, and thus my approach has to change slightly based on that. I feel that there's a lot of agreement in terms of playing style between Cape Town City and myself, and I think that was also one of the reasons why they brought me in, is because they saw the way that we were playing and saw a lot of resemblance to what Cape Town City is doing at a PSL level, and trying to build the youth teams into a recognizable style like that, where the goal is almost that if you made the game in black and white color instead of full HD color, people would recognize the Cape Town City team even if they don't need to see the shirts. And that's the idea, that there's a very clear, very defined playing style that goes from the youngest team all the way through to the DDC, and then also obviously is closely resembling what the PSL is doing.
For look, this Cape Town's filled with talent, football talent. I think we might be spoiled for it. What that obviously is the parents of those players also, who also have their own idea or ideas on football and how things should go. If there's a parent out there that they have an opportunity to either for their player or their son to go to either somebody else or to Cape Town City, what do you think? Why should they go to Cape Town City if that was a choice for them?
I do feel that we are, firstly, if you look at the historical facts, the highest finishing PSL team from the Western Cape in the last 7 or 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. So, that is a factor, is that Cape Town City has never finished lower than 7th in the PSL, and it's been consistently throughout the years challenging at the top, which also means that for an elite young player, it's an opportunity to step into a top team that is fighting at the top year in and year out. I feel in terms of the academy, there will be a very individualized approach within the team approach, where we are looking to really cater towards the needs of individual players, but within the constant that is hopefully a very attractive style of football, a very progressive style of football. And I feel this is something that has to be done in the youth years, because if a player is able to play under high amounts of pressure, if a player is able to take risks and succeed at junior level, then they are more ready to step into senior football. And I do feel that we will continue to build that. And I think we can already see, even with Coach Mark Mayambela's teams that have played in various junior competitions, and also before last year when City won the Engine, that there is a lot of good steps already being taken into that direction. And now we will look to build on that. And we will look to recruit the strongest players that we can find in the Western Cape. I totally agree with you that the talent pool here is amazing. And it also, even if you take the coaching out of the picture, young players get overloaded and challenged by other good young players. So it helps a young top talent the most when he gets to compete with other young top talents, because that is how his boundaries as a football player are going to get stretched. And that's where Cape Town City will have and has a unique environment. You get to train and play with the best players in your age and older and younger, and this invariably is going to help improve a young player.
Yeah, and you guys are monitoring that growth of that particular player
Constantly.
in the division, like you're saying. Okay, I think that's sort of enough about Cape Town City and Ubuntu.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the other things I wanted to chat to you about, Coach, was we're constantly getting for those that's following you, your training sessions, and tell us more about that. Obviously, I think it's Dusky Times it's right, that you're writing for.
Yeah.
So, just can you elaborate on that? How did that come about, and does that excite you? Is the information, the training sessions you have on is it all that you are sort of created?
Yeah, it's stuff that I've created. Obviously, like everyone else, learn from other people around me, from other coaches. I have a couple of mentors in my coaching life that I value very, very highly. It's stuff that I enjoy sharing for various reasons. Firstly, it helps me also structure my own thoughts if I have to put them down on paper, and hopefully structure them in a way that they make sense, that they are coherent, but also that they are easy to understand. Because if I get lost in complex explanations, by the time that thoughts get transferred to our players, I think it's very easy that things get lost along the way. And so this process of writing, the process of putting it down, gives me an opportunity to structure it. At the same time, it's then out there for people to see, and that's good for two reasons. Firstly, I very often get feedback from various coaches in South Africa, but also elsewhere, and that feedback is for free. It helps me improve it. It helps me look at the exercise or the concept from a different point of view. So I'm getting to refine my thoughts and perhaps make them better before I even use them in practice. So that's incredibly valuable. And it's also a way to challenge myself to keep coming up with new ideas, to keep growing the ideas, because if things are out there, it is maybe something that people can use and look at. But then I also want to try to stay a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of my own ideas and constantly evolve them and adapt them and hopefully make them better.
Obviously you're using it firstly for yourself, so you can improve whichever team you're coaching and so on. What's the secret in keeping it simple? Because sometimes, like you say, it can get sort of, because you have this in your mind, you want to put it down, and I see sometimes on the tweets also there's a couple of tweets following up to explain it in detail. I normally read it. I will normally read it. Sometimes I understand it, sometimes not. But then when I read your comments, I'm like, okay, so what? Then I understand it. What's the secret in keeping it simple for people to understand?
I think we want to use what is, through Raymond Verheijen's coaching education, is called action language, where we are talking in terms of football actions and trying not to get lost in kind of vague, gray, very abstract explanations, but rather talk within football actions and the space-time components within a football action, which is position, moment, direction, and speed. And if I'm explaining as much as possible within that, it's a language that anyone that is in football hopefully can understand because of the experience that they have within the game. And so my guideline there is to try to be staying within that as best as I can and try to be consistent with the language that we use. And then, to also put as much out there as necessary, but not as much as possible. So try to explain it within the least amount of words possible.
And obviously just keep it toned down to the actual moments of the game and just not be all over the place.
Absolutely.
Before we conclude, we have a lot of we've got a big coach following. And we're always trying to upskill coaches, therefore we have different workshops, like and so on. For a lot of young coaches, from what I see, is they sort of, thank goodness, there are quite a few young coaches out there at the LFA level. But there are those that are not there yet and coming up, and they look at guys like yourself and even those guys, and they might think, oh, I don't have this license, I don't have that license. How are they going to do that? What sort of advice do you give them in terms of, obviously it's not impossible to get ahead. Any advice for younger coaches? And I'm talking guys are coaching already from 18, 19.
Yeah.
And they're pretty serious about it.
Yeah. I mean, I did my first little bit of experience in coaching at 16. And so my number one advice is to go and do as many sessions as possible. Get experience out on the grass, training as many days a week as possible, even different teams if you can, and thereby build, hours of experience, but try to make those reflected hours. So where you are looking back at what you did and see, okay, what was good, what was maybe not so good, what can be consequently done better. I think that for me has got to be number one, because that experience builds up, hopefully, better and better training and principles and everything along the way.
Yeah, just sorry to cut your thought there, but in other words, write everything down.
Yeah, I think,
because a lot of coaches actually don't do that anymore as they should. Record everything.
I think plan your session, execute your session, and reflect on your session. And it doesn't have to be a many hour-long process, but just a brief and very active period of doing that. That then builds up your knowledge base as a coach. Then learn from your players. See what works, what actually doesn't work in practice. Get their feedback, because players at any level they often pick up a lot of subtle details that you as the coach could miss along the way. So pick up on those, seek feedback from the players, and try to create an environment where they feel safe enough to give open feedback. Then get educated along the way. There is obviously the coaching badges out there, but there's also the internet, and that is almost for free, really. And so there is a lot of inspiration out there. It's obviously difficult to filter that when you start. Nevertheless, it is something that I think coaches at all levels, they seek inspiration from elsewhere. Like, I've gone to German pro Bundesliga clubs, and you'll see the German FA's coaching magazine, where there's articles in there from amateur coaches as well. And this magazine is read by almost every Bundesliga coach every month. And that's just a simple example at the top of my head of guys that are, at the very top of this profession, that are still actively seeking out inspiration from elsewhere. And I think that is a process that never stops and should never stop, because this kind of journey of discovering the profession is one of the nicest things about being a coach, is that football is a complex sport. And so even if you're in there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, I think you still are discovering new things along the way all the time. No one knows even remotely everything about football. And thus it never gets boring. So embrace that.
Cool. I think that's sort of it. But before we go, also, we're going to totally go off the topic. Looking at football, world football at the moment, who's Coach Moritz's favorite coach?
Well, my favorite coach would be Rene Maric, he was assistant at Leeds United last year, and was previously assistant at Borussia Dortmund and Gladbach and Salzburg. He would be a real role model for myself. I love watching Pep Guardiola's Man City. I love watching Arteta's Arsenal recently. I think Brighton are extremely interesting with De Zerbi. If you look into other leagues, like in the Bundesliga, Xabi Alonso with Leverkusen are extremely interesting this season. You could even go lower than that into the second Bundesliga, where there's SC Paderborn, who've got some incredible aspects in possession. So I like to watch that. And I think there's a hell of a lot of good coaches out there at various levels. And there's aspects that you can pick up everywhere, and even aspects that you might have never thought about before. Like an example, there's a team in the second Bundesliga called Hamburger SV, Hamburger Sportverein in Germany, and they play a build-up where the center-back will overlap the fullback, where the fullback will, as a left-sided fullback, will pop up on the right, where it's things that people would have never thought of, but it happens, and it also works. And then maybe you don't take that into your LFA team
You're not
straight
yet.
away, but it is something that can make you think about the game in a
how you
slightly
can-
different way.
Yeah,
And that's exciting, and that's fun.
yeah, that is, yeah. Coach, I think that's all my questions for today.
Thank you.
I want to thank you. Sorry it was so bad.
No.
I want to say thanks for coming, making the time on your busy schedule. I know the job is demanding. It's football, you love it, it's the passion, but it is hard work. So I want to say thanks for that. And I think from the fourth moment, we want to say best of luck for the year, for the season. Your season starting this weekend against Cape Town Spurs.
We're playing 2 derbies first up. Cape Town Spurs on Sunday, and then we're playing Stellenbosch the week afterwards. So it's a very dynamic, passionate start to the season, and we're excited for it. It's gonna be. I
don't know if it's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing because that's the exciting matches. Everything else might be a bit boring.
Well, I don't know. I've never coached at the DDC level before.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it will be quite interesting every week. But obviously, those 2 matches bring with it an extra spice, and that's just exciting. And that just means that there's maybe a little bit more pressure on the players. However, that's also a nice opportunity for them to learn within that. And can we still play the way we want to play when the pressure's on a little bit?
Yeah. Guys, that's Coach Moritz Kossmann of now Cape Town City. I hope you enjoyed it. This was a little sort of a little coaches discussion, which I'm very selfish about, and that's why I started the fourth moment, because these are the guys I want to learn from. And obviously, whatever we learn, we take back to what we're doing. So hopefully you've learned something. If you did, share us a comment or a like. But Coach, thanks once again. And we'll see you in the field. And to you guys, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.